Good morning, students. Say your prayer. Thank you. நான் ஒரு நல்லாசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். நான் ஒரு நல்லாசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். நான் ஒரு நல்லாசிரியர். நான் உங்களுக்கு தாயாகவும் தந்தையாகவும் இருந்து முறையாக அன்போடு கல்வியை போதிப்பேன். Okay, students, take your social science book and take page number 250. So in last class we have discussed about president. So president and also his powers. In today's class we will discuss about vice president and the prime minister of India. In today's class we will discuss about the vice president. So how he was elected, what are the qualifications, then the functions of the vice president. Then we will discuss about the prime minister. So how was the prime minister elected? So who appoints the prime minister? So what are the functions, so duties and functions of the prime minister. And at last we will discuss about the council of ministers. So apart from prime minister, so he have ministers. So both of them, that is prime minister and council of ministers, so were there to help, to advise and aid the president. So president run the government, so in the name of or under prime minister and council of ministers. So how they work, so we will discuss in this topic. So in last class we discussed about the central government. So central government is the supreme government in our country. So the central government consists of three organs. So what are they? Executive, legislature and judiciary. So the union executive, so consists of the President of India, the Vice President, the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister and the Attorney General of India. So in that we discussed about the President. So the President is the nominal executive authority. So he is the chief executive. So he is the commander of the armed forces. So as per Article 53, executive power of the Union shall be vested in President. Then we discussed about the qualification of the election of President. So what are the qualifications? Should be a citizen of India, have completed 35 years of age, then should not be in any office of profit. And another one important one is, so he have the qualification to be a member of the Lok Sabha. Okay, then so the election process. So we have discussed about the election process. Then the resident. So the residence and the office of the president. So how was it called as? Where it is? In Rashtrapati Bhavan. Yes, it was called as Rashtrapati Bhavan, which is in New Delhi. Then apart from that, so he have two other office, come residences. So where it was? One at Shimla and another one at Hyderabad. Then we discussed about the powers of the president. So what are the powers we have discussed? Executive power, then legislative power, financial power, judicial power, military power, diplomatic power, then emergency power. Then finally we discussed about the removal of the president. So how was the president removed? So president may send his resign letter to vice president, or he may removed from office through impeachment, or he may removed from office by signing his resign letter or impeachment. So only two process, or impeachment or by signing his resign letter, or if he died means, so his office became vacant. So if he died before his completion of term of office means, then the office became vacant. So thus the president can be removed. Okay, so we have discussed these things in our previous class. In today's class we will discuss about the vice president and the prime minister. So the vice president occupies the second highest office in the country. So the president occupies the first highest office. So like vice president, so he occupies the second highest office in the country. He is accorded a rank next to the president. So he is accorded. So accorded means to give somebody or something authority or status. So to give somebody an authority or status. So he was given a status. So he was given a status, so of a rank next to the president in the official warrant of precedence. So precedence means the condition of being more important than somebody else and therefore coming or being dealt with first. So the condition of being more important. That is, so he is given so highest rank next to the president in the official warrant of presidents. So this office is modeled on the lines of the American vice president. So the American vice president is similar to Indian vice president. So Article 63 of the Constitution provides for a vice president of India. So in our Constitution, Article 63 so provides for a vice president of India. So this office has been created to maintain the political continuity of the state. So the vice president office has been created to maintain the political continuity of the state, because so the vice president was elected by the members of Rajya Sabha. Okay, so the vice president was elected by the members of the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. So there is no participation of the state legislative assembly members. Only the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members participated. So this office has been created to maintain the political continuity of the state. So vice president, so he occupies the second position next to the president. So he was given a status. He was given more important status next to the president. So the office, so the vice president office is modeled. So it is like the American model. So the American model of vice president. Our Constitution, Article 63, so provides for the vice president of India. So the office has been created to maintain the political continuity of the state. So qualification for the election as vice president. So what are the qualifications we need? So first, he should be a citizen of India. Then he must have completed the age of 35 years. So both these are common for president also. So qualification for president. Then he must not hold any office of profit under the union, state or local government. So these 3 points. So similar to that of president. So they should be the president of India. Then they have completed the age of 35 years, then they must not hold any office of profit under the union, state or local government. Then another one important thing, he should have other qualifications required to become a member of the Rajya Sabha. So if you take president, so he should have the qualification to become a member of the Lok Sabha. But in case of vice president, so he should have the qualifications required to become a member of the Rajya Sabha. So these are the qualifications needed to become a vice president. So first, he should be a citizen of India. Then he must have completed the age of 35 years. So he have completed the age of 35 years. Then he must not hold any office of profit under the union or state or local government. Then he should have the other qualifications required to become a member of the Rajya Sabha. Election and the term of the vice president. So how was vice president elected? So what was his term of office? So Article 66(1), the vice president, like the president, is elected not directly by the people of India, but elected by the method of indirect election. So as per Article 66(1), the vice president was not directly elected by the people of India. So he was indirectly elected as like that of the president. So the main difference is, so in presidential election, even the state legislative assembly members participate, but in vice presidential election, only the members of the parliament participated. So only the members of the parliament have participated. So the term of office of the vice president is 5 years. So the term of office of the vice president is 5 years. So his office may terminate. So terminate means, so to put an end. So his office may come to an end earlier than the fixed term, either by resignation, death or by removal. So his office may become vacant either by his resignation or by his death or by his removal. So he was removed from office, so by the resolution passed in Rajya Sabha. Okay, so he is eligible for re-election. So if he went to do a job, so if he fills the post of president means, then his chairmanship in Rajya Sabha was performed by the deputy chairman. So he is the chief spokesperson of Rajya Sabha. So he is the chairman of Rajya Sabha. So if his seat become vacant, that is either by resignation, death or by removal means, then the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha performs the duties of the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So he is the ex officio chairman. He is the chief spokesperson in Rajya Sabha. So he presides over the meeting of Rajya Sabha. Suppose if the vice president performs the duties of the president, or his seat become vacant means, then the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha performs the duties of chairman of Rajya Sabha. Okay, ma? Suppose if the post of the president and the vice president lies vacant means Chief Justice of India work as president. So if the post of the president lies vacant means vice president act as the president. Suppose if the post of the president and also the vice president lie vacant means the Chief Justice of India work as president. So this situation happened in 1969 when Chief Justice M. Hidayatullah was appointed as the President of India. So such an incident was happened in India in the year 1969. So during that time, the Chief Justice of India, M. Hidayatullah, was appointed as the President of India. Next, removal of the Vice President. So we learn about how was Vice President elected. So he was not elected directly by the people of India, but by indirect election. So how can be he removed? So the Vice President may be removed from his office by a resolution. So resolution means a formal statement of an opinion agreed on by a committee or a council, especially by means of vote. So a formal statement of an opinion agreed by a committee or a council, especially by a means of vote. So the Vice President may be removed from his office by a resolution of the Council of State, that is Rajya Sabha, passed by a majority of all the members of the council and agreed to by the House of the People. So that is by Lok Sabha. So the Vice President may be removed from his office by a resolution passed by the Rajya Sabha. So with the majority of the members of this council, and it should be agreed by the Lok Sabha, and it should be agreed by the Lok Sabha members. A resolution for this purpose may be moved only after a notice of at least a minimum of 14 days. A resolution must be passed. A resolution for this purpose may be moved only after giving a notice. So at least 14 days before. So if the Rajya Sabha want to remove Vice President means, so they have to send the resolution to Vice President, so 14 days before. So the removal of the Vice President may be removed from his office by a resolution of the Council of States passed by a majority of all the then members of the Council and agreed to by the House of the People. A resolution for this purpose may moved only after a notice of at least a minimum of 14 days has been given of such an intention. So first, the Vice President removed from office by passing a resolution by the Rajya Sabha, then it should be supported by Lok Sabha. Then before passing the resolution, so the resolution should be given notice. So given as notice at least 14 days, minimum 14 days before. Functions of the Vice President. So what are the functions of Vice President? So the Vice President is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Ex officio means included or allowed because of your job, position or rank. So he is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. He regulates the proceeding of the House. So proceeding means an event or a series of action. So he regulates the Rajya Sabha House. Then he decides the order of the Rajya Sabha. He decides the order of the House. So here House means Rajya Sabha. Then he decides the admissibility of a resolution or questions. So he only gave permission for passing a resolution or asking any question. So he decides the admissibility of a resolution or questions. Only with his permission, so a resolution or a question must be passed. He suspend or adjourn. So adjourn means to stop a meeting or an official process. To stop a meeting or to stop an official process. He can suspend or stop an official process. That is, he stop the session of the House in case of a grave disorder. When the President is unable to discharge of his duties means due to illness or absence from the country, he attend to functions of the President for a maximum period of 6 months. So when the President is unable to discharge his functions, so maybe either due to his illness or if he is in foreign country, if he is in foreign tour means, then the Vice President performs the duties of President up to a maximum period of 6 months. So up to a maximum period of 6 months. Suppose if the President die before his term of office means, then the Vice President act as the President until elections is conducted and a new President came into office. Then the maximum period for acting as the president was only 6 months. Yeah, so the vice president can perform the duties of a president. So maximum period for a month of 6 only. Okay, va? So next, prime minister. So we have discussed about the president and the vice president. Now the prime minister. Article 74(1) says there shall be a council of ministers with the prime minister as the head to aid, that is to help and advise the president. So Article 74(1) says that there shall be a council of ministers with the prime minister as the head to aid and advise the president. So the post of prime minister of India has adopted the Westminster. So Westminster, it is in England. Yeah. So the Parliament of England is in a place called as Westminster. Yeah. So Westminster, it is the place it is a part of London. So with the Houses of Parliament. Yeah. So the post of Prime Minister of India has adopted the Westminster model of constitutional democracy. The Parliament of England is situated in Westminster, so it's called Westminster Parliament. Yeah, so the Parliament of England is situated in Westminster. So Westminster, it is a part of London. Yeah, so it was called as. So the Parliament of England was called as Westminster Parliament. Yeah, so the post of Prime Minister of India has followed the Westminster model of constitutional democracy. So who was appointed as the prime minister? So the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha is appointed by the president as the prime minister. So the leader of the majority party. So the majority party, the party which get majority seat. Yeah, so that party leader was appointed as the prime minister by the president. Yeah, so the majority party will choose a leader. So Lok Sabha leader among themselves. Yeah. So that person was appointed as the prime minister by the president. Yeah. So the other ministers are appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. Yeah. So the other ministers are appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. So the leader of the majority party in Lok Sabha is appointed as the prime minister by president. So the other ministers are appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. If no party commands absolute majority in the Lok Sabha, so absolute majority means, so total number of seats in Lok Sabha is 545. Yeah, the party which secures more than 272 plus seats, so more than 273 seats will form the government. So if a party wins more than 272 plus seat means, then the party is declared as the winning party, so the majority party. Yeah, so the leader of that party will be appointed as the prime minister. Yeah. If suppose no party command or no party get such absolute majority in Lok Sabha means, then the president can summon the leader of the any party who in his opinion can manage to form a ministry. Yeah, so if any party didn't get such seat, that is more than 273 seats means, then the president can choose a person who have more number of seats in Lok Sabha as the prime minister. Yeah. Then the person who was appointed as the prime minister have to prove his majority in Lok Sabha later. So the president can appoint the prime minister who get majority support in Lok Sabha, and also the council of ministers were appointed by the president on the advice of prime minister. So the president administers to the ministers the oath of office and of secrecy. The president administers to the ministers the oath of office and of secrecy. A person who is not a member of the parliament can be appointed as a minister, but he has to get himself elected to the parliament within 6 months. Yes, a person who is not a member of parliament can be appointed as a minister, but he has to get himself elected to the parliament. So maybe Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha within 6 months. So the ministers are individually as well as collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. So ministers are individually or as well as collectively. So ministers either by their own individual purpose or collectively they are responsible to Lok Sabha. So the president administers the ministers, administers to the ministers the oath of office and of secrecy. A person can be chosen as a minister. So even though if he is not a member of parliament, he can be appointed as a minister, but he has to get himself elected to the parliament within 6 months. So the ministers are individually as well as collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. So duties and functions of the Prime Minister. So what are the duties? So what are the functions? So performed by the Prime Minister. Article 78 mentioned the duties of the Prime Minister. Article 78 mentioned the duties of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister decides the rank of his ministers and distributes various departments. So the Prime Minister decides the rank of his ministers and distribute various departments. So he only decides. So what department have to be given to his minister. So he only decides the rank of his ministers. The Prime Minister decides the dates and the agenda of the meeting of the cabinet which he presides. So he presides over the cabinet meeting. So he fixed the date and the agenda and the timing of the meeting. So the Prime Minister decides the dates and the agenda of the meeting of the cabinet which he presides. The Prime Minister informally consults 2 or 3 of his senior colleagues when he does not convene a cabinet meeting. So the Prime Minister informally consults 2 or 3 of his senior colleagues. So colleague means a person who works with you. So the Prime Minister sometimes consult with some of his close colleagues. So when he does not convene a cabinet meeting, suppose if he does not unable to arrange a meeting, or if he is in any other critical situation, sometimes if he is in foreign country, during that time, so he discuss with his colleague, so with his senior colleagues to convene a meeting. So say for example, so who was the close colleagues of our Prime Minister Modi? Amit Shah. So often he discusses some serious matter with his close colleague Amit Shah. Okay, so that's why he are saying the Prime Minister informally consults 2 or 3 of his senior colleagues when he does not convene a cabinet meeting. The Prime Minister supervises the work of various ministers. So the Prime Minister, so he supervises the work of the various ministers. Then to converse to the President all decisions of the Council of Ministers connecting to the government of the affairs of the Union and proposals for legislation. So he acts as a link between the President and Council of Ministers. So he passed the information. So he passed the news. So he passed the legislation. So to President and proposals. So decided by the Council of Ministers to the President. So to converse to the President all decisions of the Council of Ministers connecting to the government of the affairs of the Union and proposals for legislation. Okay, then he acts as the link between the President and the Council of Ministers. So he acts as the link between the President and the Council of Ministers. So the Prime Minister is the leader of the nation and the chief spokesperson of the country. The Prime Minister is the leader of the nation and the chief spokesperson of the country. As the leader of the nation, the Prime Minister represents our nation at all international conferences. As the leader of the nation, the Prime Minister represents our nations at all international conferences like the Commonwealth, Summit of the Non-Allied Nations, SAARC countries, G20, etc. Okay, as the leader of the nation, the Prime Minister represents our nation at all international conferences like the Commonwealth, Non-Allied Nation Summit, then SAARC nations, etc. Okay, so Article 78 mentions the duties of the Prime Minister. So he decides the rank of his ministers and distribute various departments. He decides the date and agenda of the meeting of the cabinet. Then he consults 2 or 3 of his senior colleagues when he does not convene a cabinet meeting. Suppose if he does not able to arrange a cabinet meeting means, then he consults with 2 or 3 of his senior colleagues. Then he supervises the work of various ministers. Then he passed that is he converts so he tell about the information, he tell about the decisions and the proposals of legislations decided by the Council of Ministers to the President. Then he acts as the link between the President and the Council of Ministers. Then he is the leader of the nation and the chief spokesperson of the country. So as the leader of the nation, he represents our nation at all international conferences. So Council of Ministers. So already we know that the Council of Ministers are appointed by the President only by the advice of the Prime Minister. So after the election, the President of India on the advice of the Prime Minister appoints the Council of Ministers. So the ranking and the department of the ministers was decided by the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister can change any ranking. Yeah, so any department to any minister. Okay, so the Constitution of India restrict the number of council of ministers, including the prime minister, to 15% of the total members of the Lok Sabha. Yeah, so the Constitution of India restrict the number of council of ministers. So how many ministers are there? It should be 15% only. Yeah, so it should be 15% of the total members of the Lok Sabha, so including Prime Minister. Yeah, so after the elections, the President of India, on the advice of the Prime Minister, appoints the Council of Ministers. So the Constitution of India restricts the number of Council of Ministers, including the Prime Minister, to 15% of the total members of Lok Sabha. So categories of ministers. So the ministers are classified under three ranks. So cabinet ministers, ministers of state, deputy ministers. So the ministers are classified under three ranks: cabinet minister, minister of state, then deputy minister. First, the cabinet minister. So the cabinet is an informal body of senior ministers who form the nucleus of administration. Yeah, so nucleus means, in a cell, so nucleus is very important. Yeah, so in a cell, so in biology you have learned that in cell, nucleus is very important. It occupies the center position. Yeah. So likewise, so cabinet, so it forms the nucleus, very important place in administration. So the cabinet is an informal body of senior ministers who form the nucleus of administration. Important decisions of the government are taken by the cabinet. Yes, important decisions of the government are taken by the cabinet. So some of the important cabinet ministry were defense, finance, external affairs, and home. So some of the important cabinet ministries were defense, then finance, external affairs, then home. So the cabinet is an informal body of senior ministers who form the nucleus of administration. So who form the important place in administration. So important decisions of the governments are taken by the cabinet, such as defense, finance, external affairs, and home. Then ministers of state. These ministers belong to the second category of ministers in the council. So the next to the cabinet ministers, it was the ministers of state. So these ministers belong to the second category of ministers in the council. They are also in charge of ministries or department, but they do not participate in the meeting of the cabinet unless invited to do so. So they are also given separate department. So they are also in charge of ministries or department, but they do not participate in the meetings of the cabinet unless they are invited. So the ministers of states, so they are belong to the second category of ministers. So they are not much important as like that of the cabinet ministers. So the cabinet ministers, so they form the nucleus of administration. So very important decisions like defense, finance, external affairs, home were included in cabinet ministry. Other department were included in the ministers of state. So they are not participate. They do not participate in the meeting of the cabinet unless they are invited. So this is the ministers of state. The third rank, deputy ministers. So they are the lowest ranked ministers in the cabinet. They assist either the ministers of a cabinet or state in the performance of the duties entrusted to them. So they are attached to the office. They are attached to either cabinet ministry office or ministers of state. So they are the lowest ranked ministers in the cabinet. So they assist the ministers of cabinet or state in the performance of the duties entrusted to them. So they are ranked low. So they are the lowest ranked ministers in the cabinet. So they are not given a separate department. So they are attached either to the cabinet ministry or to the minister of state. So they have to perform the duties given to them. So these are the categories of ministers. Okay, students. So today's class will discuss about the vice president, then the prime minister, and also the council of ministers. So which articles says about the appointment of vice president of India? Article 63. Then we discussed about the qualification, then the term of office. So how was he elected? He was indirectly elected. So he was elected by the members of the parliament. Then we discussed about the removal of the vice president. So he was removed by a resolution passed by the Rajya Sabha first, then which should be agreed by Lok Sabha. But he must be given minimum 14 days notice. Yeah. Then the functions we have discussed. Yeah. So he is the chief spokesperson. That is, he is the ex-officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Yeah. So he decides the order of the house and he proceeds the house. Yeah. Then we discussed about the prime minister. Yeah. So Article 74(1) says, so there shall be a council of ministers with the prime minister to aid and advise the president. Yeah. So the prime minister of India is like the model. So it was adopted on the basis of Westminster model of democracy. So Westminster, so the parliament, the England parliament is located in Westminster. Yeah. Then who was appointed as the prime minister? Yeah, the person who get majority support, the party which the leader of the party who get majority support in Lok Sabha was appointed as the prime minister by the president. Then we discussed about the functions and duties. So the prime minister, so he is the chief spokesperson. He is very important person. So he represents our country. He acts as the link between the president and the council of ministers. Then he decides the rank of his ministers. So there are various functions so performed by the prime minister. Then we discussed about the council of ministers. So the ministers were appointed by the president on the advice of prime minister. That is, the prime minister can change any one office, can anyone's department. Then the ministers are classified under three ranks: cabinet minister, ministers of state, then deputy ministers. Okay, so if you have any doubt in this topic, so please contact me. Okay, students, so today's textbook reading, take page number 251. So read that the qualification for the election as vice president, then election and the term of the vice president. So read the two paragraph. So textbook reading, so read it loudly. Then homework, so take page number 258. Sixth Roman letter, answer in detail. Third detail, what are the duties and functions of the Prime Minister of India? Take page number 252. So duties and functions of Prime Minister. Article 78 mentioned the duties of the Prime Minister. And then write all the points. So very important question. So you have to write all the point. So read it and write it. Okay, students, so do your homework. So if you have any doubt, please contact me. So thank you. Have a nice day.